On today's show, the LA Clippers faced the Denver Nuggets in their second preseason game and went with a different starting lineup. What differences did we see from the starting lineup with John Collins in it? Going to be talking about that and more on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, been a Clipper fan for 21 years, been covering the team on my own YouTube channel, Dime Jumper, for 6 and 4 right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know every single time we post a video on the road to 8,000 subscribers before the season starts. And of course, you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Head on over to FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, Clipper Nation, our second preseason game, this one being the first one at the Intuit Dome. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend. We lose it 102-94 to the team that knocked us out of the playoffs last year, the Denver Nuggets. But of course, the results in preseason don't mean much. It's about the process. It's about what kind of things we're seeing. And we're going to be talking about the different starting five that we went with in this game. I'm going to be talking about the guys that stood out for me, particularly Brook, Lopez, and Derrick Jones Jr. But let's begin with the new starting five. So for those that didn't watch the first game against Guangzhou Long Lions, our starting lineup was, and Bradley Beal has not played in either of these games. Ty Lue says that if things go right, he will play on Friday against Golden State. But without Bradley Beal, that gave us a 10-man rotation of like the 11 guys that are, rotation players. And Bogdan Bogdanovic started alongside James Harden, Kawhi, Zoo, and Derrick Jones against the Lions. This game, Bogey was injured with that back injury, or was out with that back injury, and instead we had James, Kawhi, and Zoo, who are the non-negotiable three, and then this time Derrick and John Collins. And if you've been listening to this show this summer, I've been saying that that's the starting lineup that I wanted. No Beal. Get a point of attack guy in there. You have your 3 stars, and then you have John Collins. But Bradley Beal is going to start based on everything that we've heard. And if you're wondering why, it's because it's who he is. It's Bradley Beal. So it's John Collins and Derrick Jones Jr. whose spots seem a little bit more interchangeable. Now, I liked what I saw in this unit, to start the game. We outscored the Nuggets 32-31 in the first. I thought our defense could have been a little bit better. At times, it was a little lackadaisical, especially in transition throughout the game. And I think a lot of times we were, not good about talking through different coverages, whether it's, an off-ball screen. And because Denver sets so many off-ball screens, they're one of the more movement, motion-based teams in the league. So you really have to communicate when it comes to that. And, there are some guys that are just getting used to playing defense with one another, like John Collins and Derrick Jones, or, just the new guys in general that haven't communicated through these different situations yet. And that's what preseason is for. So I thought our defensive attention to detail and intensity was not great, especially in the first half. But, as far as the lineup, I think James Harden started the game super well in the pick and roll with Zoo. I counted 4 assists for James Harden to the bigs alone in pick and roll in the first quarter. Some really nice passes. One where he got into a quick pick and roll and then scooped it underneath the basket to Zoo. Or he was under the basket and scooped it over to Zoo. There was another one where he threw a right-handed bounce pass with some spin on it that got to Zoo underneath the rim. And he had an and one lefty lay. Impressive finish, but even more impressive pass from Harden. So you saw a lot of the, great things that James Harden does in pick and roll in that first quarter. And it was a lot less Kawhi in that first quarter. So going back to the approach thing, I keep saying, to start games with a Kawhi-centric focus, get him the ball early. But what we've seen in these first 2 preseason games is that first quarter has been more James Harden Zoo pick and roll action, which, you can let me know in the comments what you think. Should we start games with a more Kawhi heavy approach or a James Harden Zoo heavy approach? Because what happens is, what I'm seeing, and even though James Harden's creating great shots, in these first quarters, Kawhi is not super active. Not super active. But I will say this. Zoo was energized to start. James Harden was doing a great job finding his bigs, whether it be Zoo on the roll or Brook Lopez on the pick and pop. And one thing I noticed was John Collins likes to cut. And it's an interesting thing, right, with James Harden. He has gone out and said, or Ty Lue has spoken for him and said that he doesn't usually like when guys cut when he ISOs or when he's driving because he wants guys to stay space so he can have less congestion. And there was a time where John Collins dove to the basket baseline, but I don't think his defender had really taken his eye off him, so it kind of clogged things, and James Harden tried to force the bounce pass, and it got intercepted. So that's something that John Collins has to be, aware of is when he's cutting. Cutting a lot of times is all about the timing of it. When a guy turns his head to you, that's the perfect time to cut. And when, James Harden's in pick and rolls, and John Collins' man leaves him to go pick up the roller, that's the perfect time to dive. It was just one of those moments where it wasn't a perfect time, but that's exactly why you work out these kinks in the preseason. But I just feel as though with Derrick Jones Jr. and John Collins, you might see more cutting. I mean, because Derrick Jones Jr. is an incredible cutter. I'll talk about him later, but I liked what I saw from that starting unit. I think you need a bigger sample size to see, how it looks entirely and to make real big judgments on it. But, it's really going to come down to Derrick Jones Jr. Knocking down his open shots. Because the thing is, in the first quarter, he had a couple of open threes and they didn't go in. And by the way, just for the Kawhi Leonard front, he only had 2 shot attempts in the first quarter, just to, back up my point. But Derrick Jones Jr., for example, he was 0 for 2 from 3 in the first quarter, got some good looks, which was different than the last game where he was kind of hitting. But he was 5 for 8 overall, and I'll talk about him later. But yeah, the Clippers lose it 102-94. As far as that starting lineup, James Harden, he was actually 1 for 6, but it didn't feel like that. 1 for 6 from the field, 1 for 3 from deep, made both his free throws. He had 5 points, 5 rebounds, and 11 assists in 24 minutes. So he was diming. And I love that one play where he was on a fast break early in the game and he could have easily finished it himself, but instead he gave it to Kawhi. That was a nice moment of unselfishness there from James. But 3 turnovers, 11 assists. That's a pretty good assist to turnover ratio. I thought he was really good in his minutes. Ivica Zubac, more of the same. Double-double for him, 11 points, 10 rebounds, 4 of those offensive rebounds. Had a couple putback tips. It was just 7 points immediately in the first quarter. So some really good stuff from Zoo as usual. He was 5 for 6 from the field, but 1 for 4 from the free throw line. That was a little suspect. Clippers shot 43% from the field in this game. Denver, 46%. We shot 24% from 3, 9 for 37. So not a good 3-point shooting net for us at all. They shot 15 for 42 from 3. So 36%. The free throw battle, though, is where we beat them. They were 11 for 17 at the line, which is good enough for 65%. We were 19 for 26, which is good enough for 73%. So my main takeaways from that starting lineup is we need a larger sample size, but I liked what I saw. I love the balance with John Collins. He got the festivity started coming off a little screen for a wide open mid-range on a miscommunication on a switch where they didn't step up and meet John Collins after he got the screen. So, and also it was really cool to see John Collins against Aaron Gordon. On Aaron Gordon's first bucket, Collins blocked him, but then he got the offensive rebound and put it back up and in. But you just kind of get to see like those glimpses of, hey, this is why we brought John Collins in. So I'm super excited to get our first real taste of the Denver Nuggets when we play them in the regular season. But for that starting lineup, I think my main takeaways were we were playing more so through James and Zoo. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you like that approach as opposed to starting with Kawhi, feeding him to get going? And then we're going to have more cutting with this lineup. With John Collins, who looks like he's ready to cut, Derrick Jones Jr., just a lot of athleticism when you have those two out there together. But yeah, solid lineup. Coming up, going to be talking about the impact of one Brook Lopez and how impressed I was. I got to tell you a little something about Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross training with your favorite instructors. My roommate has a Peloton and he's on it a good amount. Seems like it gets the job done for him. For me, I use my cardio in basketball because I don't need more cardio that much. But you know what? Sometimes I question myself, so maybe I should get on that Peloton. The swivel screen is a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. All right, so Clippers losing it 102-94 to the Denver Nuggets. I mean, as far as Denver, nothing stood out. Cameron Johnson was broke. He was 3 for 8 from the field and 2 for 7 from three. I think he's still going to be really good for them, though. Jamal Murray was on the quieter side, just 7 points on 3 for 9 shooting. Aaron Gordon, though, I mean, this guy's just such an annoying player. He's a Clipper killer. He was getting some boobers from the swell. I think we definitely got to keep that going during the season for sure. Screw that guy. No, he's a very good player. 18 and 7 in 22 minutes for him on 6 for 11 shooting, 2 for 5 from three, and even had like a between the legs step back over Derrick Jones Jr. and a no look pass to Jokic at one point in that first half. I was like, what? Ugh. Very, very, pretty annoying. But let's talk about Brook Lopez for a second. So Brook Lopez comes in the game and just starts hitting everything. Pick and pop threes from James Harden. And, we saw James Harden do this with Joel Embiid over and over again. But that pick and pop, when teams are in drop coverage and Harden's just going to throw that behind the back pass right to Lopez for the top of the key three, I mean, that's going to be really hard to guard. Because if you're in drop coverage, you're leaving Brook Lopez wide open. Your best counter would be to switch. Brook Lopez in the short roll will make plays. He's got that push shot. He can pass the ball pretty decently. But, when teams play drop, which is, it seems like their preferred method against James Harden, because James, when you throw two on the ball with him, he usually always makes the right pass, and then you're in a 4-on-3 situation. But Brook giving us that pick and pop element, I've said this ad nauseum, but we have not had someone like that. Ivica was short-lived. So having Zoo, who's an interior dominator and, so good on both ends of the floor right now, and then having a guy in Brook Lopez who has been a bench player, a starter his entire career. This is his first time being a bench guy. I mean, it's a huge luxury. We have one of the best center rotations in the league for me. And Brook Lopez was showing everything in that in the game, honestly. I don't want to say just the first half. And it wasn't just the threes. He hit these ridiculous, one-legged shots. There was one Euro step that he hit contested from, the foul line. And then that turnaround shot he hit in the second half when he was double-teamed to beat the shot clock. It was like vintage Brooklyn Nets Brook Lopez. I mean, absolutely crazy. He had 11 points in the first quarter just like that, with the snap of a finger. So, I mean, I'm so excited about Brook and what he can bring to the table. Very excited. And so with Beal being out and with Bogey being out, we had a 9-man rotation of our main guys, right? So Ty left James Harden in with the bench, which was Chris Paul, Chris Dunn, Brook, and Nico. And I have to say, it's just like I thought. I don't love the Chris Paul, James Harden minutes together. I think Chris Paul can space the floor for him and vice versa, but it just becomes, one of them runs pick and roll and the other one's kind of not very valuable because they both space, but they're not great catch and shoot guys. And, they seem like they don't really attack closeouts like that. They're very stagnant, both of them. They have a lot of the same pros and they have a lot of the same cons. And I don't know, it's in that with that configuration though, right? With that configuration, you want James, with those 9 guys, you probably do want James Harden and Kawhi being staggered with that group. So James Harden was with them. the first couple of minutes when they came in, and then in the second quarter was Kawhi, and that's when we really started making a deliberate effort to get Kawhi the ball, getting him the ball coming off curls. There was one play where he got the ball, faked the handoff, turned the corner, and then dunked. Love to see that. There was another play where he came off a screen and worked quickly off the catch, which is not usually Kawhi. Got it, turned, and squared his shoulders, kind of like JJ Redick style, where he was going from left to right and squared his shoulders off the catch, but it was, from the foul line area on a nice bounce pass from James Harden right into his pocket. So I love it. Just pay attention to that, Clipper Nation. Are we going to start out games with more of a Harden Zoo approach in the first quarter and then let Kawhi get going in that second unit, or that second stint, I should say? But the way Kawhi has looked in these first two preseason games, I mean, he looks healthy, he looks good, and it's just an amazing feeling that we're not going to have to, go through that period where we're watching Kawhi try to work his way into shape. He's already ready to go. And in this game, he had another extremely efficient night in terms of points during the minutes that he played. 17 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, no turnovers on 5 for 10 shooting, and 1 for 6 from 3. How about 4 for 4 from 2 for Kawhi Leonard, and made all 6 of his free throws? You love to see the way that he's playing, and I'm just very excited about a healthy Kawhi to start the season. Anyway, one thing I also wanted to say about John Collins before I forget, I noticed a little bit more for the second straight game of Zoo hedging on the ball screens, and I thought about why that could be a thing. The Clippers might be sending, because usually you have Zoo in drop coverage, right, to protect the rim. But now we may want to try something different, because our rotations on the backside with Chris Dunn and Kawhi are pretty damn good, and even James Harden, who has really good hands. Having a secondary rim protector of sorts, an athlete on that backside, especially 2 if we have a lineup with, 3 if you have Kawhi, Derrick, and John, it makes it so that when we basically are blitzing the ball screen and you're putting pressure on the pass, we have athletes that are ready to shoot the gap and get in front of that next pass and intercept, and then we can get out and run. I think John Collins being such an athlete and being able to protect the rim when Zoo gets pulled out is part of why we're going to see maybe more hedging of the ball screens and Zoo coming out to meet the ball handler on those pick and rolls this season as opposed to last. And I also think Zoo being getting quicker, getting better laterally as the years have gone on is part of that as well. But that's something to watch. But my overall takeaway is that Brook Lopez is going to be amazing. Just the simple fact of the pick and pop nature that he brings to the table that we haven't had, and his experience. I mean, it's going to be great. It's really going to be great. As far as some things I don't think we were doing very well, for example, in the second quarter, we actually outscored them by 1 in the first 2 quarters. So we were up by 2 at halftime. Then the third quarter was 17-14. Denver outscored us. Kawhi didn't play in the second half. So, limiting him and still making sure that, he's not playing unnecessary minutes. But I thought our transition D, and it's funny, I was thinking this, and then when David Pingalore was reporting what Brian Shaw said at halftime, he was saying that they were talking about their transition D. And it's funny because we had those shirts that were talking about why we lost to Denver, and it was one line that said we lost to Denver because of transition. I don't think we did a very good job of showing hey, we have talked about this. We want to make an effort to get back. And it's just a lot of transition defense is just communication and also effort. You got to be willing to take the ball handler. There was one time where Jokic was running ahead of the pack and nobody was meeting him on the fast break. It's excuse me, this is their best player ahead of the pack. No one's going to pick him up. No one's going to run under the basket. That's a lack of attention to detail. So again, preseason, the kinks got to come out, but defensively in transition, when you play against a team like Denver, you need to haul ass back. Simple as. So just something to watch. But it was an electric ending to the second quarter with Kawhi's dunk and then a 3-ball. And coming up, going to be talking about a guy who is making it very hard to see him come off the bench. Going to be talking about Derrick Jones Jr. and his performance next. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and we just finished week 6. FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get 300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And let me tell you something about the NFL odds right now as we stand after week 6. For the Super Bowl, the Buffalo Bills are the favorites at plus 650, the Kansas City Chiefs at plus 700, Green Bay at plus 750, Detroit at plus 850. Then you got the Eagles, and guess who's number 6? My LA Rams. You got the Chargers at 8. The 49ers have dropped a little bit, to say the least. They are now out of the top 10 in the Super Bowl odds. In terms of awards, right now, Patrick Mahomes is the favorite for MVP with Josh Allen, number 2, and Baker Mayfield, number 3. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. I got to tell you a little something about Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. And Monarch Money really helped me organize my finances when I was in a tough time and I wasn't really checking them. It made it so much easier for me to realize what I was paying for and how much money I'm really wasting with some of these things. And Monarch is just overall built for people with busy lives like myself. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. All right, so Clippers lose the second game of preseason, 94-102. Of course, the third stringers were kind of in at the end, so it's, you don't really need to judge the wins and losses. But I'll tell you, that 13-2 run to end the second quarter for your Clippers, for us, was awesome to watch, and it really started with Derrick Jones Jr. How active this guy is on defense, and it's not just what he does on defense, it's how that leads to our offense. Derrick does a really good job of leaking out when we get a rebound or we get a steal. And when he has a running start, forget about it. Like it's not just his dunks, but he does a really good job of hanging in the air and finishing at the rim because he's so freaking high already. So he's just basically he's like at eye level with the rim. So he had a couple nice double clutches and up and unders, and his activity defensively, it just gets us going. It just gets us the break started. And James Harden did a really great job of throwing some nice outlets up the floor that were just pinpoint for Derrick to take flight. So, some really great stuff. So, like, even when he's not shooting well, that's what he brings that Chris Dunn really doesn't. Is when Chris Dunn's in the open floor, you don't think much of it. When Derrick Jones Jr. is in the open floor, buckle up. And it's not just that; it's his cutting. We saw it so much last year. The baseline cut coming off that back screen that James Harden and Derrick linked up with so many alley-oops for, and he just does a great job of diving baseline too when Zoo's in those short roll situations, and he's going to be in a lot more of those, and not just short roll situations. When Zoo gets the ball this season, I think you're probably going to see a different level of commitment from the defense to take away his floaters because it's basically automatic. They're going to try to leave Derrick Jones Jr. open, and that's when he not only has to make the open three, but there are going to be those opportunities where he can dive to the basket baseline and get that lob from Zoo. So my point is, it's very hard to see Derrick Jones Jr. not starting right now. It's very hard because of his point of attack defense, and he gives us that athletic element of a cutter and just a guy that's, he's in the open floor and he's got a running start. Forget about it. So I was happy with what I saw from Derrick. He had 12 points which was the second most for any of our starters. 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, no turnovers. And Kawhi also had no turnovers. And Derrick shot 5 for 8 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. So just an overall really solid performance from Derrick Jones Jr. I don't know if he's not gonna I love John Collins. I think he definitely has a case to start too. I personally think Beal should be coming off the bench, but it's not gonna happen, And I like Bradley Beal. It's just I value the point of attack defense element of this, but we'll see. It's gonna be a tough decision for Ty. I look forward to seeing Beal hopefully on Friday, so we can see what a lineup combination of maybe Beal instead of John Collins in that lineup looks like, or even Beal instead of Derrick Jones looks like. But as far as some of the other guys, not much to report from Nico. He had a donut, 1 turnover, and was 0 for 2 from the field, and both those shots were threes. Not much to say there from Nico. I think, who else was there in our rotation? I talked about Brook Lopez. He ended with 15 points, a rebound, an assist, and 3 blocks, by the way. So it's nice to see we have another rim protector, but his rebounding is not very good, and it's never been great. 6 for 10 from the field for Brook, and 3 for 6 from 3. So 60-50 splits. Beast. It's just for me, it's a dream come true to have Brook Lopez. I've always loved this guy. But anyway, CP3, not the same kind of game for him. Didn't really feel like he ever got into a rhythm. He had 2 points, 2 boards, 2 dimes, 1 turnover on 1 for 5 shooting and 0 for 3 from deep in 21 minutes. Chris Dunn, 3 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 turnover on 1 for 3 shooting and 1 for 2 from 3. It was nice to see him knock down that open corner 3. But that was it from the main rotation guys. John Collins, 9 points, 4 boards, 1 assist, 1 block, 3 turnovers on 3 for 7 shooting, 1 for 2 from deep, and made both his free throws. But yeah, both teams were, it's not like they took great care of the ball. We turned the ball over 15 times. They turned the ball over 16 times. And every other stat was fairly even. The largest lead for the Nuggets was 8. The largest lead for us was 7. As far as our, younger dudes, Cam Christie had some good moments. He had a steal and a bucket. He had a nice and one where he got bumped and threw it up and banked it in somehow from the right side of the floor. That was really nice. But Kobe Brown, I'm rooting for him. I've met the guy. He's a nice guy. But his 3-ball, if he doesn't end up making his open threes and he doesn't show any sort of, self-creation, he's not going to be in the league much longer. In this game, 1 for 7 from the field, 1 for 6 from deep, 3 for 4 from the foul line, 6 points, 4 boards, 2 assists, no turnovers. I mean, look, I think there are bigger things in the game than just shooting, right? And making shots. But when you don't have self-creation and you're not great at any particular thing, you got to make your open shots. It's that simple. Jordan Miller also wasn't really hitting much either. He had 5 points, 1 board on 2 for 7 shooting and 1 for 4 from deep. And then Jason Preston got 8 minutes, was 0 for 1 from the field, a donut, 1 rebound, 2 turnovers. So he had 2 turnovers and no assists. Cam Christie, 5 points, 2 boards, 1 assist, 1 steal on 2 for 4 shooting, 0 for 1 from 3, and 1 for 1 from the foul line. But you know who I was actually very impressed by in his 8 minutes? Yannick. He had this amazing move where he went behind the back and then threw a pass over his head to Kobe Brown. And I was like, what? I said he could be another DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan could never dribble like that. I was like, yo, did Lawrence Frank cook for once with the draft picks? Did our scouting team finally cook? Because we know the pogo stick aspect of Yannick, how bouncy he is, how athletic he is. He got a block in those 8 minutes. He had 4 points, 5 boards, 3 of those offensive boards, and an assist, and made his only field goal. It was 2 for 4 from the foul line, but that one play, I think it was with about 2 minutes left in the game. I was shocked seeing that. I was like, what? So, we're not going to see him much this season unless maybe, the funny part is even if Lopez does get hurt or Zubac does get hurt, I think Ty Lue and the coaching staff would rather go with John Collins playing small ball 5 than playing Yannick. But hopefully we see some stuff in the G because mean, the kid's got potential. So overall, I still think we're going to be great this season. I think these first two preseason games have shown us, all these new additions. You saw a great game from Collins the first game. You see a great game from Chris Paul the first game. You see a better one from Lopez the second. So, I mean, next is Beal, right? I'm excited to see all these new guys. So that was that. Clippers lose it 102-94. And our next game, so that was our last preseason game at Intuit. We play at Sacramento on Wednesday. So that should be exciting. See how that goes. And then at Golden State on Friday. And then the big time begins. So I'm going to try to attempt something this week with the amount of episodes I'm releasing. We'll see. This is the first one of the week, but I'm trying something. I'm not even going to say what it is. I'm just going to try to release a decent chunk of episodes. And there are going to be, various topics, but I'm just trying to try to release because I feel like I've not done a good enough job this summer, to be honest with you. So hope you enjoy them. Various topics coming up. But yeah, it's almost that time. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dime Dropper Pod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper, LA Sports, and NBA content. I'm releasing playoff recaps on my Dime Dropper channel because I didn't do it in real time, so check those out. And of course, Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell to help us get to 8,000 subs before the season starts. And of course, you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. The age-old proverb continues: Go Clippers.